All right, this is part two of our watercolor techniques. This time we're going to do what's called a paper dam, or wet onto dry. So again, we're going to draw a simple shape. Let's go ahead and all draw a triangle this time, big, and then lightly again, one inside another. And we're going to do this one more time. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4 triangles. Now, what this is, again, this is wet on dry, or what is called a paper dam. Now, so the first question is, what's a dam? Well, a dam is a structure that helps keep two bodies of water separated. So that's what we want to do. So on this one, the water kind of ran a little bit. So we want to separate. So we're going to put a little bit of paint here, but we don't want any in here. So this is going to be our paper dam. And then we're going to put another one here. Actually, we're going to do it the other way. We're going to put paint here, dam, paper here, and that's our dam. So to do that, we're just going to paint on a dry surface, or what is called wet on dry. So I'm going to add a little bit of water over here just to get charged. I'm going to use a different color this time. So I'm going to use red. Use quite a bit of red. It's kind of dark. And then all I'm going to do is paint inside here. All right, and again, you want to hold the brush a little bit down further, like a pencil, so you have a little bit more control. With watercolor, it is kind of hard to get a consistent, even amount, but try the best you can. So don't be in a hurry. Kind of pull the water, and then if you start running out of water, you're going to see what's called a dry brush effect, which we're going to do later. I'll try to keep going so you can see that. So then what we're going to do is we're going to skip, and we're going to go in here. So what this does is it creates what's called a paper dam. So what it's not doing, because we didn't wet this in here, it helps keep the water or the paint from running, which we're going to use a combination of this here in a minute. So basically you're just painting in an area, and I'm going to go back in and darken this a little bit just to even it out. Alright, so that's basically all you're going to do on this. This is wet on dry. So here's the difference. Wet on wet, you have less control. Wet on dry, or the paper dam, more control. So maybe we put that on here, more control, less control. Now, that doesn't mean it isn't cool. You can kind of, once you get used to watercolors, you'll figure out how to control them a little bit better and how to be able to control the wet on wet technique a little bit better too. Alright, so that's all you're going to do for that one. Now, we're going to go ahead and do the next one though. We're going to do a combination of these two. So we're going to go wet into wet with paper dam. So for this one, let's do just a couple of easy things here. So we're just going to do a couple like Gothic arches, if you recall from American Gothic. The window. Alright, so we'll bring that all the way down. So what we want to do is we want to do wet into wet on the outside here. We're going to keep the inside of these arches white. This is another thing that's called saving the whites. So to save the whites, you don't paint into them, because when you have watercolor, you don't usually have white watercolor. So what we have to do is we have to use the white of the paper. There's a couple different other ways that you can do that. One of them is just to paint around and use the white. Another way is to scratch some things out. You can do what's called a resist. You can take a crayon. There's a lot of different ways of doing that. We'll get into that later. Okay, so I've painted clean water on the outside on the negative space and kind of right there in the middle. So we're going to say that inside part's our positive space. Then we're going to charge up our color again. Let's go some blues, and I'll get another one over here, and I'll go some green. I didn't really get that wet first, but we'll let that sit and charge for a minute. Again, every once in a while you may have to dry off your brush So I'm going to go blues, and this is called, again, charging. So we're just going to kind of drop it in. And it should only go where the water is. And you can try multiple colors in here. And then I'm going to try the green in there. So we're going to use analogous colors because they work well together. And that's a kind of a light green, so I might want a little bit more now that it's had time to charge up. And just drop in some color in there and try to fill in. So if you were pretty good with controlling your water, you should be okay. And you can tell this is kind of starting to dry up a little bit. Now, if I paint in here, it's still going to paint. Okay? This just keeps it to where when it bleeds, it will stop where it's dry. So it's not going to go in the dry area unless there's a ton of it. So you still have to kind of control it a little bit. You can kind of mix some colors together to see what it looks like. But basically, that is what that one is. We'll finish this out really quick. So I'm just kind of dropping the colors in. And again, you can add in a little bit more. Let's add a little bit of purple just by doing a couple spots in there. And again, the wetter it is, the more it's going to kind of fray out. You can see it kind of gives a fuzzy, not a sharp edge. So if you want a super sharp edge, you want to do this wet onto dry. You want kind of a little bit more kind of tie-dye effect. The wet on wet kind of works for that. Or you kind of want to make it fuzzy. If you're doing the background of something, remember as things go back in space, they get less detail, so it'd be more fuzzy. This might be a way of doing that.